Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Coffee Roasters Wrap. For this week's episode, I have another amazing guest coming along to give us some insights from Origin. Really excited to share this all with you. So let's not hesitate. You don't have to listen to me jabber on. Let's get right into the guts of it straight away. And I'd like to introduce you all to Marke Howard from Caravela. Thanks for joining me, bro.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we jump in, man, I know your company has some project on ground in certain origins that you're going to share with us, some updates today. Would you mind just giving everyone a quick intro? This is the first time you've been on the pod or on with us on socials. A little bit about maybe yourself, your role, and kind of what you do with the company as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll speak mainly personally on myself. So I've been in coffee for almost 20 years, maybe even a little bit over. Anything from being a dishy through to all the way to where I am today, being a coffee trader essentially and working
Yeah.
for a vertically integrated exporter. And I've been lucky enough to work in a lot of roasteries, i.e. Campos, Ruben Hills, Marke Coffee, and
Cool.
a bunch of roles in terms of being a barista, being a green buyer, a head roaster. I've had full exposure to the supply chain. So I'm really fortunate enough to be able to, have some really great relationships here, mainly in Sydney, where I kind of grew up
Mm.
and was found specialty coffee, I suppose. I currently live in Newcastle. I'm from Sydney, but I'm living in Newcastle at the moment. We have an office in Manly, so I visit on occasions down here and manage the business from there. But yeah, I've been at Caravela now for 10 years. So it's
Congratulations.
been
This is the 10-year anniversary, bro.
10 years in September. Yeah.
Oh, how
Yeah.
good. That's
So
awesome.
it's crazy. It kind of feels like 15 years to be honest,
Oh,
but
man.
it's been an incredible journey.
The last 2 years have made it feel like 15. The
Oh,
last
I think I don't know. I really feel like it's actually the last like during COVID and
COVID was
especially
5 years ago, bro.
yeah, I know it's just gone so fast, but
Blows my mind.
yeah, it's gone extremely quick, but also
Mm.
like I think there's just like an immense amount to always learn that it feels like it's never ending
100%,
in
bro.
in a job like this. Yeah, of
Yeah. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about Caravella? Just a
course.
little
Yeah.
bit about the company. You mentioned a vertically integrated company. I think that's a really interesting thing about
Mm.
what you guys do that would be probably, I think, interesting to everyone.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So Caravelle has been around for 25 years. It started in Colombia in the year 2000. Back then, we were only selling via FOB Incoterms, and we were only in Colombia. Now, Alejandro Cadena, who is the co-founder with Giancarlo, they saw a gap in the market for a model to come in and not only create stability of pricing for smallholder producers, but they saw a real gap in terms of traceability, transparency, and I guess a model where you could link a price point to a grade.
Yeah.
So there was all this like jargon already there that you could adopt and use to, I suppose, describe quality and describe how coffee is milled by spec and so on. But they wanted to go to another level with it or create another layer
Mm.
of quality and then tie that all into the one thing that really does matter. And that is relationships, relationships with producers, but bridging those gaps between, and it's kind of a cliche saying, to coffee producers and roasters and how they could do that. So the extensive financial background of the founders was used to kind of create a really regimented, very organized, strategic means of creating forward contracts
Mm.
and long-term contracts because they saw that there was a huge gap with, I suppose, the stability of coffee producers being able to have access to a market and having access to, real fair, traceable pricing.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to have a product that was superior, that was obviously very good and consistent, but also have a model that gave back to these communities. And the one thing we wanted to also do was to create a model where we were really not dependent on third-party services to provide, coffee. So
Yeah.
what he wanted to do was just kind of shrink the long supply chain. There's so many cogs, right, in the chain, so to speak, and we wanted to remove all that and to make it kind of 100% Caravela owned and operated all the way through, so that we could have full control over the product, and complement that with good service and everything else. So that's where the model kind of started in Colombia, and then it kind of expanded into other origins. So I think, we had a lot of growth kind of in the later 2010s onwards, and we decided to kind of be placed in Nicaragua and in El Salvador and Guatemala and Peru and Ecuador, and I guess it kind of fell into this place where we wanted to be seen as, green coffee exporting professionals and focus just on Latin America.
So that kind of touches on what you're going to share with everyone today, is that kind of like band of where you guys are integrated in the market. So what we're going to go through today is you're going to be able to give us some insight of like what's happening on the ground. And this is, like you said, in that example of what the company does, is this is probably some of the most direct communication we're going to get without having a producer live on a call. So like, this is really exciting to kind of see what's happening there. So man, I'm not sure if there's an origin you want to jump into straight away or a certain thing you want to touch on, but I'm happy to hand over you. And then I'm just going to be the inquisitive roaster asking questions and trying to learn more.
Of course. Yeah. I think today the focus will be Central America. And we're mainly going to focus on the origins that we have, people on the ground, and that is Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. So that's where I'm going to kind of touch on.
Sure.
And, I can get straight into it.
Crack in. I'm excited to learn.
Cool. Okay. So, overall, in those 4 origins I mentioned, it's been a really tough season this year, mainly due to erratic weather.
Okay. So this is like from a production kind of weather effect. Yeah.
Yes, correct. And it kind of all started, in early 2024 with a prolonged drought that we all heard about in Brazil, but also affected, Central America as well. And this also then followed really intense rain during the harvest season as well, particular to do with the tropical storm Sarah that hit in November. And these conditions caused delayed in flowering and uneven, cherry development, and in many cases issues with drying and cherry quality. You add then the C market remaining really strong. Many producers haven't been able to really benefit due to early pre-harvest sales, a lack of access to traceability and specialty markets and forward contracts. And I'm not just talking, obviously, Caravela, but just broadly speaking.
Across what you're seeing in those markets,
Correct.
Just to circle in on something for a second, bro. When you say challenges with drying, I just had something that popped in my head that maybe if it pops in mine, it might pop in other people who are listening's head. Are you talking about a challenge of drying because of moisture content in the product, or because of weather when they're actually trying to do the physical drying of it?
I'm both, but mainly definitely the actual physical drying. There's a lot of moisture in the air. What that does becomes another threat to the coffee, the embryo in the actual parchment itself maturing in a way that won't be susceptible to defects, be it phenolic or age or other things.
More susceptible to be less palatable on the cup, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So that drying is a massive thing. I'll touch on it when we get to Nicaragua, but I kind of want to touch on firstly Mexico and some positives, and that Mexico, in spite of everything that's been happening, has been a very solid harvest in terms of quality and productivity has been really good. Especially in the regions of Chiapas and Oaxaca. And while it got off to a late start, things picked up definitely in February. We saw quite a lot of movement as well after that. And so, but then there was a real disconnect between high market prices and what producers again were actually getting paid, and many sold their coffee early at fixed prices, which ended up being lower than the market was and now. On top of that, the lack of visibility around where the coffee goes or what value it ultimately can capture means many producers are missing out on better returns. So it's clear reminder of how
Yeah.
critical traceability and relationship-based sourcing can be,
Did
and not just quality.
Yeah, did you see with those like producers having locked in and then like the market moving and then obviously not getting that movement being locked in?
Mm.
Have you seen any risk of default, whether it's Mexico or in that region in general?
Um, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard like directly, oh, this, relationship with this particular exporter has had issues with like
Yeah,
defaulting,
yeah,
but I can imagine that it just creates again another stressful environment
yeah.
for the relationships.
It's another point of
And
friction when there's such a
mm,
discrepancy between what they're getting paid and what it's worth now.
yeah, yeah, and there's that
Yeah,
disconnect again, and so I think you know, especially in places like Mexico, where
yeah,
the farms, like say in Colombia, are relatively small, especially in Oaxaca. They're like they operate like a small business.
yeah,
They can't be compared to these kind of massive El Rancho Relaxo farms that have a real like understanding of their costs,
yeah,
understanding of how much they need to make and how much they're producing. And so
yeah,
it's a little bit like, I'm sure, some of the roasters,
yeah.
like some of the
Small
small
business
guys.
versus big business.
Yeah, some of them are just flying blind, just going with what's going on. Don't really have the time or the means to kind of research further and get educated and yeah, having to challenge themselves to change the narrative. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
you
it's
know
interesting, bro.
yeah, it's a real interesting thing, and it's clear reminder of how critical traceability and relationship based sourcing can be. But um, we're also starting to see some gaps in quality focused harvest practices as well due to it. There's room to improve in areas like picking and wet milling, and while continuing to work with producers to strengthen these practices,
Mm.
highlights how producing cleaner, better coffee benefits everyone in the supply chain, especially in Mexico,
Yeah.
for sure. So, I guess I could move now to Guatemala. On the
Yeah.
other hand, has been quite challenging in terms of quality. And this is due to the delaying of the flowering and higher production costs. Increasing labor shortages is a massive one that's played things. Also, the return of some leaf rust in some areas.
Mm.
One
So leaf
trend was,
leaf
yep,
rust is like a disease on the coffee plant. Is that like kind
that's
of as a
correct. Yeah.
summary for everyone? Leaf rust is like a visible effect on the plant.
Like a fungus,
Yeah.
like an airborne fungus. It
Yeah.
was really bad in the early, 2010s, and I remember going to a coffee farm in 2014
Mm.
and seeing how bad it looks, and it's like skeletons. It's on a coffee tree.
Yeah.
It like saps the lifeblood of the tree, and it's pretty depressing to see. It's could
So
really be
it would
devastating.
affect like a tree's like cherry yield and things like that
Mm,
when it's got this fungus, this rust on the tree.
yep.
So even though it's like a
Yeah.
leaf rust, it's not just the leaf of the tree that it's affected. It's actually like a disease in the tree that affects cherry
Yeah,
yields,
exactly.
quality, everything.
Everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has the ability to just cripple how a plant produces fruit,
Yeah.
essentially, and really attacks the core of the plant.
It's
So
crazy to
it's
think just from like a
mm,
roaster's perspective. Like I walk into my roastery in the morning and there is no real environmental effect that has that opportunity. Like I'm not going to walk in
mm.
and go, "Oh no, my coffee machine got coffee rust or whatever." Like I guess there is. Like if you're not filtering your water correctly, then you might have a bad coffee
Yeah,
machine. If you're not cleaning your roaster correctly, but these are all things that you can like do work to fix. That
mm.
like I guess there's some things that can be put in place, but when there's environmental effects like that, there's probably limitations on what they can actually do to protect themselves or, work towards that. So I just think that would scare me every day if I was walking into my business
Yeah.
with something like that hanging over me that I is kind of out of my control.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I mean, there is rust resistant varietals that have been, developed,
Mm,
and they work, of course.
mm.
But I think still there's just, again, more threats and uncertainty in the air that can really
Yeah, true.
damage the crop. And so, I, you know, I have a very very small garden at home, but I witnessed what it's like to have a few bugs and a few other threats to, you know, some herbs I'm trying to grow, and I'm like, and
My
when it's going
parsley's
on,
gone down.
yeah, or like, basil. I've got all this basil. I like to make pesto, and yeah, I had this like all these bugs on it and ruining it. I'm thinking, imagine if I like had this as a career trying to
Yeah, imagine if this
produce.
was my livelihood. Like,
Yeah, it's
I
shocking.
I have so much admiration for any farmer and any agricultural like person who lives from the land and things like that, because it's like
Yeah,
I have zero agricultural bone in my body, but I make a career in an agricultural industry. Do you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
make a
yeah,
career in I make a livelihood in an agricultural industry, and I have
yeah.
no agricultural skills at all. So like
Mm.
that blows my mind sometimes when I deal with it. Like I tried to have a herb garden so many times, I've now given
Oh,
up. But it
it's
like
hard. It's
when we
hard.
talk about it, it gets me back in that sense that I'm in an like coffee roasters, cafes. We're in an where we rely on agricultural industries to do what we do,
Mm.
and there's such volatile things with the environment, with pests, with all these diseases. Like it's crazy. So sorry, I went on a tangent. I
No,
got you
you're
distracted.
right. I think what I where I relate to you is that just managing a very small garden at home, there's a certain amount of labor that has to go into ensuring that you produce quality.
Mm,
And it hit me really hard like the other week about it, having to make some time on the weekend and manage the garden in a certain way to ensure that I produce, great vegetables or whatever. And it's work. It's real work. You got to put the grit in, and
mm.
man, it just brought me back to, yeah, like you said, full circle to the industry we work in, and how hard the farmers have to work in order to produce a great product. You know, so yeah, in the case of Guatemala, like what one trend we're seeing or saw this year was the producers are choosing to sell cherry locally, which gives them quicker returns
Mm.
with less processing effort. But obviously, the limits of availability of high quality, fully processed coffee are not there. So understandably, this also means that we're seeing fewer top lots coming through, especially at the higher end of the quality spectrum. So our relationships and sourcing model at Caravela are super important in this time to
Yep.
to help keep producers engaged and see them rewarded based on the extra effort that's made. Um,
I think that's
so
a I think that's an invaluable thing for people to hear and understand, because we are so like on the other side of the world, literally for us here in Australia. But to understand, prices go up, quality doesn't. So
yeah,
there is less incentive when the market is this high for the additional workload required when they can sell cherry in country at quite a high price compared to what they're at traditionally. So there's less
mm,
incentives in place for that. So I think
mm,
that's a really good thing for people to understand, because you like the suppliers that you're working with, and as a roaster, it's going to depend on the relationships they have in place, the value that they're providing to their partners and the people they work with, and how they're integrated to guarantee you that same quality. Like I think it's a really crucial thing, because quality is going to be a challenge from what I'm hearing in general across the board.
mm.
And it's going to come down to like the right the right access, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
So in terms of like harvest time for Guatemala, where are we
Mhm.
up? Where are we at today? Kind of thing.
Well, the harvest ends technically
Yep.
very, very soon. In fact,
Yep.
a few weeks, I believe.
So
And we're,
majority
yep,
of that would probably be like booked. Do you reckon a lot of it's kind of secured right
mm,
now, or
yep. A lot,
yeah?
most of it would be secured. For us, in particular, we're actually out of washed coffee. We can offer some naturals
Yeah.
at the
Wow.
moment, but in terms of forward booking, but like we had a few customers book the other week, and it was some bigger quantities, and it was like all we had left. And I'm sure, like, depending, there could be some stuff around, but
Mhm.
again, it's cherry picking. It's really, really late in the
It's the
season. And
end of the season, so yeah, it's hard
yeah,
to guarantee.
I,
That's really interesting. Do you reckon you've been in a
mm,
position, whether you're happy to share or not, but have you been in a position where you've sold this much this early? Like, are you seeing people booking earlier
mm.
in harvest now?
We're definitely seeing a trend where people are understanding the like what's at stake when you leave it so late, and what
Awesome.
tends to happen. And I mean, we've tried to in Australia, especially, originally it was 90+% spot coffees. That's what we did. We would bring in these
Totally.
lists and we would like flog the list and we'd have events around the list and it was all about the list, and
Yeah,
so
yeah. It
now.
was like the single source of truth. What's the spot list?
Yeah, and that's understandable. Like, there's a culture here where we live so far away from the tropics, and we are dependent on, the importers who are bringing in the stories, the narrative, and they're the ones who are controlling what you're listening to. And now I think, like I said before, Caravela, like we were never like specialists with spot. We always focused on forward booking. That was the model, like long-term forward booking, mitigating the risk, and making sure that we can develop these strong ties with producers and roasters. So it was a foreign language, the spot thing, but over time, where we've been able to show roasters the benefits of forward booking, it's starting to click, and you can see that the risk is taken out, and the planning and the passion of wanting to manage your inventory really, really well and be across things. Because if it's taking on average 55 to 65 days stock to get here, you've got to be so across things.
Mm.
If you're not, you're going to get caught out. And especially now where and you would know this, most importers are hedging their spot list and they're pricing it in today's market. You're paying close to 20, 30, maybe even 50%, depending on the market fluctuations of the day, especially with the AUD being so weak. It really exposes you to having to pay so much more. So forward booking, getting a fixed rate in is the way to go, I think, in a lot of cases. And it goes back to, I think, of one of the strongest models, in my opinion, which is a fixed rate mortgage,
Yeah.
and if you can lock in a rate against, your household budget, and you're happy with the rate that works well within the ecosystem of your nuclear family or whatever, you can then operate out of this fixed cost and then have some money left over for entertainment and other things. So that's how I've kind of viewed and
Bro,
solved.
you've just opened a can of worms for me. So my co-founders are German, and they have a thing where you have to
Yeah.
have a fixed rate for like the first 20 years or something, or like it's
Wow.
some
Yeah.
crazy amount. And like in Australia, it's like you can fix for 3 and you're up and you're down. And like we have this
Yeah.
crazy mortgage system in Australia, which is a can of worms for me personally. Because I always get the bugbear because theirs is so like regimented and long term. And it's exactly that. It's like it's the spot buying mentality that we've had in Australia isn't going to survive for you as a roaster in the market now. We're in a new market. Like that's the only way I can describe it is it has changed. And it's good to hear that in your experience, like I think I know like some of your customers who've been working with you for years. So like I'm happy to shout them out. I don't know if they like it, but whatever. But they're
Yeah, go ahead.
legends.
Yeah.
They're good mates of mine. But like Legend, so Pete and the guys at Legend, I've known him for years. The K-Mac and Hal up at Floozy are legends as well. So I've actively seen that consistency of how that works. Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen it with them and their operations and stuff. So it's the market is now coming to where that forecasting is no longer an option. It's interesting you see that around like Guatemala kind of at that time of year where we are, and it's like it's pretty tied up. You guys are probably in a position maybe you haven't been in that often before where it's like, no, we're sold it. Like we worked with our customers, we've supported our customers, we've supported our producers, and we've sold what was there when it was there. There's no overflow anymore. There's not as much overflow anymore, at least.
Yeah, and you're right. And we have to be really careful because, like myself here in Australia, as a team, we make decisions on what spot coffees we decide to bring in that don't have a home yet. In the same way, Origin can operate where they go, okay, I'm going to buy coffee from all these producers without any commitment yet. And they end up with all this inventory, and it's a real risk. So we cannot just go and just buy coffee because we can and could or should. We've got to be really careful about what we buy that has a contract linked to it, because it's just, intelligent buying and
the
safeguarding.
cost for your business to hold those things is so high. Like the cost for any business to be holding a spot coffee is exorbitant at the moment. The cost of cash to hold it, like the risk of those profiling things, it is everything across the board. Everyone feels cost of living is going up and everywhere. It's the exact same. The cost to hold a spot coffee for an importer, whether it's Caravela or anyone else in the market, roasters, it has gone up drastically. So you're going to be paying an inflated price to have to access that, because they're paying an inflated price to have to hold that for a potential buyer. I don't know if you agree, but I think it's just, we have to understand that that is not the most economical way for a coffee roaster in Australia to buy coffee in this market. That's just the reality.
Totally.
And it's hard for us to go that, because we're untraining decades of habits. We're untraining decades of people getting reliant on that and not having these this like approach to buying. So it's a big change, and I sympathize with it, but I'm going to circle back to it, because I hate saying circle back. I'm going to come back to it, because it's one of those things that we have to come back to. That's it. I'm too corporate now, man. But I'll come back to it, because it's never too late to start planning, forecasting and buying your coffee. Like, you can start today. There's never a day that you go, man, I've been buying spot forever, I can't change. You can change today, guys. Like, don't be afraid. Reach out to anyone. Like, your suppliers will actively, like, how excited would you be to hear from someone who goes, hey, I want to start forecasting and planning better? You'd be like, oh,
like, whoa, yeah, it'd be like, it's so refreshing, like 100%. I think, you're absolutely right.
I just want to build this confidence. Anyone who's listening who goes, oh, but I'm too small, or I haven't done this before, or I didn't do it this way. Like, you will not find a supplier who doesn't like the time you reach out and you go, hey, I want to start planning and forecasting a bit better. What can we do? You will get so much support that it might feel vulnerable, because it feels like I've not been doing it this way before. But you will be like, more often than not, you will be openly received by your supplier to be like, cool, let's build a plan. What can we do together? How do we do it? Like, back yourself, roasters, back yourself. Sorry, I've distracted you and I've taken you off.
No,
we're chatting about Guatemala.
No, you're right. This is good. We're going to be able to, I think it's good that this is a good format. I can give you a little update and we can then relate it back to roasters. And I think it's a good way to do it, because I think all the things you're covering is relevant, and it's all important. And
these are conversations you said it well. Like, you would be having with your roasters as it is. These are conversations that I have with roasters I work with. These are conversations that I have with suppliers like yourselves that I work with. And it's just the opportunity for us to have these so more people can listen in. Just listen into the conversations of what's happening in the market right now, to understand, to be aware, to get informed, and to build confidence in yourself as a roaster. Like, you can get through this is my goal. Like, you didn't wake up and become bad at buying green coffee, guys. You didn't just wake up overnight and be like, oh no, the market's changed. The game's changed. Know that you have the skill set in your company to adapt and to get through this. The same way is not the way to get through. We need to find new ways. We need to find new approaches. We need to find new buying strategies to deal with now, but you can do it, is my goal.
Yeah. And I wrote a letter for one of our customers regarding, what's going on in the market at the moment, which we're all aware of. And it's very apparent globally in terms of agricultural products that coffee is the most volatile agricultural product in the world, and so that comes with these highs and lows and roller coasters. It's just unfortunate the way it is. And I think the antidote to that is planning, is being across your usage, understanding your usage, and having the confidence to step forward and go, okay, this is what I'm doing. Maybe give yourself a little buffer room, understand what your ceiling price is, and working out what works. No one can tell you that. I can't.
100%, bro. The amount of times people go, what should I be charging for, Caleb? What should I be charging my wholesale price out? I'm like, bro, how big's your roastery? What's your overheads? How much debt do you have? What are you buying? How much are you covered for? How long are you covered for? How much are you giving that cafe? Like, I cannot tell you what to do your prices. It's the way out of this is hard work. I'm not lying to anyone. I build a software. We work on a software to try and help with management and stuff. The software is not going to fix the problem for you. The software is going to give you the tools to be able to capture and compoundly learn for you to implement systems in your business. Like, we're going to make it as efficient, and there's not a silver bullet that's going to fix these things. Mark can't answer that question for you. I can't answer those questions for you. You have the ability, the skills, and the knowledge to do that for yourself, but it's going to take some grit. Like, that's where I'm at, and that's what I always kind of push back to people. But you're on the right train. Like, to get out of this is, we got to plan our way out of this. We got to plan it in buying. We got to plan it in pricing. It's the exact same part. These two things can't be separate anymore. There used to be a little bit of like the head of the snake didn't talk to the tail, or I don't know, horrible analogy, because whatever. But like they were a bit disconnected, because you would buy coffee and it was stable. There was an oversupply. There was consistency in price. There was a very good quality for a long time. It didn't really affect if you bought late, short, long, whatever. You could always get it covered in Australia.
Yeah.
So your pricing could be this fluid thing that you would just do over here, because this part was pretty safe. It's not safe anymore. This part has to be direct. When this part moves, this part has to move. If you're quoting wholesale prices as a roaster right now, I'm going on a rant. If you're quoting wholesale prices as a roaster right now, longer than you have booked coffee, that is a massive risk for your company. If you're signing a cafe up for a 12-month contract or whatever it is at this price, and you've only got coffee booked for 6 months, it's happening.
It's hectic.
It's hectic. I'm an intense dude, and I apologize, but
no,
I'll take any chance.
Cool.
Man.
I think coffee people are intense. They have another side to them that's, I think we're all on the spectrum to some degree, in coffee. It's just the way it is. So don't apologize. You don't need to apologize. Yeah. But it's crazy, man. It's like going to the grocery store and telling the cashier, so what should I buy? They'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I don't know. Like, there's some fruit and veg over there. Like, you just got to make your own decisions, right? It's just how it is. And there's no shaming in that. It's just like you said before, the narrative has changed, and we need to plan, and you need to forecast, and you need to manage your business in a way to not just to survive, but to be successful. So
100%, bro. Well, is there anything else on Guatemala? So
that's it about Guatemala. I could talk about El Salvador now.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some stuff on El Sal. I feel it's a bit of a big one.
Ooh, it's a big one, yeah. So heavy rain starting in November caused a lot of damage. Particularly in low altitude regions where cherries dropped prematurely. And labor, again, was a big issue. So there was a lot of shortage, meant that some producers simply couldn't get their coffee harvested on time.
So when you said, just to stop you for a second, when you said coffee dropped too early, heavy rains means the beans swell and there's too much moisture and it falls off the tree earlier than expected. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Like literally from the rain physically hitting trees to the trees just kind of absorbing moisture or like swelling rainfall. And the cherries fill up and they become very dense and they tend to fall, but then there's not the pickers there in those periods to pick.
So if it's falling and you don't have the staff to handle that, then it just kind of rots and goes to waste.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to circle on that, because I think sometimes we say drop or you hear something and you're like, hang on, what does the reality of that mean? That means we don't have the labor available at the time to capture the product that's fallen off the tree because of this weather. And if we don't have that, it means it rots and it gets lost.
Yeah, the way to put it is that, like, these farms, even though they can be small, they can also be like aesthetically quite like large. And you just, unless you're like, OCD and you're watching everything all the time, pickers usually come at a certain time in the harvest where they're allocated to go to certain parts of the farm at a certain point. Yeah. The producer will know where to go. And if the weather is erratic and inconsistent, you can't plan for it. You can't plan for it. Yeah. Right. So it's hectic. Yeah. And that's literally like money falling to the ground and rotting away. So I mean, look, it's to support them in this situation. We've offered to buy cherry in some cases, which has helped to take the pressure off and let us keep buying from producers who might otherwise have lost their crop. the harvest ended early this year in El Salvador, and usually this year it's unusual this year because of the amount of rain that sped up the cherries to basically mature.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, prices were relatively stable for El Salvador, and they gave some cushioning to losses, but we can't ignore the broader structural issues the country has seen in decades. The decline due to war, migration, deforestation,
So
and
there's
more
like
recently.
there is a civil like unrest at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, basically there's just been this real, due to these things, there's just been other development projects that have displaced coffee farms
Yeah.
in
Okay.
El Salvador. So, but that being said, though, we're seeing a younger generation of producers leading the charge to bring coffee back with a focus on quality, sustainability, and sometimes even diversification into tourism.
Cool.
And so local prices remain high, but there's more of a business-driven view in the coffee industry in El Salvador. So I think, you know, just the way the country is kind of going is bringing people back to what was at one point, you know, people kind of going, this is not going to work, you know, being here. So El Salvador is an interesting one for us, and the coffee is coming out of there, especially, you know, your classic, you know, Pacas, washed coffees are great for blending, Bourbons, you know, they really, really praise Pacamaras, so they can have some excellent cup quality. So yeah, it's still looking like it's going to be relatively good quality out of there. But again, they're not, I guess protected by what's going on around the globe in terms of other threats. So, you know, one of the biggest origins I wanted to kind of touch on was Nicaragua, and they've probably had the toughest year in terms of production. And it was the perfect storm for them. You know, we're talking heavy rains during the harvest, a severe shortage of labor, and widespread quality issues because specifically phenolic defects and higher presence of smaller screen size due to the, you know, climatic changes that are occurring in the country, especially there. So you're seeing a similar thing with like the maturity and development of the cherry itself was quite uneven, and many producers had to pick really quickly and without much selectivity, which meant
so like the window of like when to get the coffee was just really narrow because of that weather variation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not really that common, and which meant that a large portion of the coffee didn't meet specialty standards, and yields also significantly lowered than expected, which was quite shocking. That being said, you know, the lots that we've brought in this year and that are coming are quite good, but we're seeing just it's been challenging on the QC side for us in Ocotal. So and then there's something that's worth noting that adding to the complexity is what went on with Mercon, which was one of the biggest exporters in Nicaragua, and now they're buying over 35% of the production in Nicaragua, and they dramatically, unfortunately, went to an
35%. So sorry, I won't. I'll let you finish. Obviously, to let everyone know, I think some people would be aware of what happened with Mercon, but you want to like?
Oh yeah, I could just tell you. I mean, they went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I think it's quite complicated regarding the financial position of that business, but. You know, I don't know enough about that business to really comment, but what I can say is that, you know, I think big traders, the threat to their, I guess, ecosystem of how they work is that if it's all about high volume and really low margin, and then you've got a lot of operational costs, you have to keep that, you've got to keep that volume coming in. And for whatever reason, that it collapsed. I think they had
that
a
was
real
like a rollout effect as well on everyone.
Yeah. You know, it's a completely different model from, say, Caravela, where we're trying to focus on, say, you know, not as crazy volume like that, but just relationships and keeping things quite niche and focused and relationship building and quality.
It's.
You know, Yeah,
It's
just
when,
very different.
for me, when I see things like this that happen with them, and obviously what we're seeing happen in Brazil with quite a significant trade house at the moment as well, is the restructuring of debt in some of the largest trade houses in some of the like big significant origins like this as well is extremely alarming and is only going to feed volatility. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we as roasters, potentially it won't really affect us in a day-to-day living life like that. Maybe as a trader or an importer, it might not affect that too much, but it affects the market and it increasingly puts that volatility in there. Like this uncertainty from players like this and these things happening are only feeding the market volatility from my perspective.
Exactly. And it goes the other way where you got like say roasters out there who haven't changed their pricing yet, where it's a race to the bottom. They're offering really low pricing, and that shouldn't be like, oh yeah, great, let's go to that. It should be an alarm bell that it's really destructive behavior, and we can see it on the trading side.
Yes,
If
bro.
coffee's really cheap, it's either there's a few things going on. The coffee's either terrible or people are being exploited, or both. Really, and it creates this. Yeah, like you said,
There's literally a
this.
lawsuit that got lodged in America in like the last week. I just read about it this morning. It was on the weekly update. There's a New York Times article out about it.
Yep.
And there's some of the largest coffee companies in America have a lawsuit against them about modern day slavery in their supply chains. And there's these actions that are being put in place now because if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I have never had anything in my life where it's like, oh, that's too good to be true. No, there's like everything's a scale. You get to pick how this works. So, like at the end of last year, you are allowed to not comment at this now. But at the end of last year, the amount of roasters I had coming up to me going like, oh, someone just told me they could get me a container of this at this price. And I'm like, that is about $4 below the C market in AUD per kilo right now. That is either old crop or that is not going to be available for the entire amount of it. They're selling you off something else. Like the trying to get the best deal is trying to put a band-aid on a bullet hole right now. Like we have to understand that this race to the bottom on price, like you mentioned there, it happens in different like stages with different stakeholders in our supply chain.
Yep.
If a cafe, like roasters are getting more inbound leads than ever before for a period. I think it's kind of slowed a little bit now that I'm hearing, and I'm talking to lots of roasters across the country, more inbound leads than ever before. But those inbound leads, why are they switching? Are they switching? Are those cafes looking for a new roaster because they're trying to pay more? Or are they looking for a new roaster because their old one told them the price was going to go up? This like we have to be like the most powerful thing you can say as a roaster this year, and as a cafe owner as well, and I'll get to them as well because they're important in this. As a roaster, say no. No, you won't sharpen your pencil. No, you won't drop a 50 cents off the per kilo price. Your coffee is valuable and you need to have a base price that you're selling it for that pays all your staff, your bills, your everything. Like you cannot break that because, oh, but they do 50 kilos a week. Don't care. Say no. Be confident you're valuable, what you do. Like focus on the value you provide, not the discounts you're giving. Exact same for cafes who have the fear about putting their coffee price up. If someone goes, oh, but I can get it down the road for 10 cents less, focus on the things you can do to make it more valuable and charge for those and have a premium product, not cutting the corner to get the cheapest coffee on the street. Because it's a zero-sum game that we're working on in a market like this. We can't race to the bottom anymore. And that's my belief. And I think my goal is to build the confidence in coffee roasters to back themselves, charge effectively, and provide high value products. Quality, service, training, education, equipment, whatever you do, just do it at a high level to meet that price point. The exact same for cafes. We have to value ourselves and the products we serve to survive this. Because if you devalue yourself, you're subsidizing your market, and how big are your pockets? It's scary.
Oh boy.
Like I'll put it out there, man, because like I don't say it from any other position than a point of empathy that I want to see you in business next year. Like I don't care who you are listening to this, you're a roaster, a cafe, I want to see you in business next year. And I know you have the ability to put things in place in your business to be able to do that because you're worth it. No one's going to come into your cafe. It's very rare that someone comes in and goes, well done, you did this. If anyone's nervous about putting their prices up, message us on Green Square, and I'll give you the biggest pep talk of your life. I'll help you feel confident about this, bro. Like, it has to happen.
It has to. And I think we have to create a culture. On this side of the business, we deal with a lot of different, vendors and suppliers to get coffee here. And in that culture of logistics, customs clearance and everything, there's a culture there. Call it corporate, call it whatever, but they have a means of just sending us an email going, hello, based on the following factors, your fees are going up by this much. And you go, all right. And you can go back and you can maybe argue or make a point or whatever, but they always stick to their guns, and they're pretty clear.
You're not moving the dial with some of those scale companies.
Yeah, right. And what happens is that you kind of just accept it after a while, and then you just got to pass it on and do your best to manage it. And I think that's what kind of needs to happen. And for the sting to be taken out of it for roasters, these things have gone up. I know it's a competitive market, but this is who we are, what we do, and we're still offering this great service, this great product. And that's it. And we're trying to do what we love to do.
It's one of those things. The difference from what I see is these operators that we're talking to that feel the pain to do this. They're not like, they feel it because they wear their heart on their sleeve. They'll have 100 customers come in and pay $6 for a flat white and be like, yep, no question. And then the one customer who comes in and goes, geez, that's a bit rough. You go, oh, and it makes you melt. You're like, no.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
You feel the punches so much harder when you're an operator like this in our industry, because we wear our heart on our sleeve as cafe owners, as roasters. So I know those punches hurt, but you need to know that is 1 out of 100. Like, you got to decide whose feedback you're listening to here, and are they actually there? Because, for example, I'll give you an example. My brother runs a cafe, buys coffee. He just put his prices up. He's in like a really nice part of town. It's like near the beach. Like, there wouldn't be a house under 1.5 mil. And he was like, oh, I don't know, I might put my prices up. I got to, like, my coffee's going up. I'm not sure. Puts it up. Everyone's like, awesome, bro. We're happy. We love you. Like, good. Because everyone's happy. Like, they're all rich. It doesn't matter. One person who drives a bloody brand new Merc, gets a new one every 2 years, goes, oh, this is a bit rough. Are you doing price gouging? Like, literally, word for word, this is what they said. Whoa. And that ruined him. He called me. He's like, bro, what am I, like, oh, what? And I was like, do they say that to the manager at Woolworths when they go buy their cereal that's been it's so easy for consumers to punch down at small operators. Know that person has just told you more about them than you. You don't have to blow up at them. You don't have to have a go at them. You don't have to go back at them. You just go, man, you're welcome not to buy here. Like, that is okay. I'm not forcing you to do this. This is a value relationship. If you don't value it, no stress. But I'm going to work every single day. I'm going to be here. I'm going to make this as best as I can to do this. But don't let them weigh you down and try and get you to pull back on this. Like, it's one of those things that I'm really passionate about, because roasters will have it where one cafe will go, no, I'm leaving. From a roaster's perspective, if a cafe goes, I'm leaving because you're putting prices up, you're not, that is the person who wouldn't have paid the bill when things got hard. That's a red flag. That's not a customer. That's a liability. And whether it's in a cafe where it's a liability on your mental health for the way they treat you, or whether it's a liability for a roaster because that cafe is already giving you signals right now that they might not pay their bills. That's it. Be confident in yourself that you can find the right people. We've been in this mode of grow. How big can my roastery get? How many kilos can I get? How many customers can I get through my cafe door? We got to be in a mode of survive. How many customers do I need to pay the right price to keep the lights on and to keep going right now?
Yeah.
That's my mentality towards it. But
yeah, there's definitely a sense of it's survival for the entire supply chain in a lot of ways, and relationships and partnerships and communicating, and there's an amazing book called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, and
literally making a note of it.
If anyone is in hospitality, which most people are, you should read that book. That book.
I'll put links to it. I'll put links to it in there, because I'm all up for a book recommendation.
It is an amazing book, because I think that's what part of it's not the service. Service, it talks about in the book. Service is black and white. but hospitality is color.
Yeah.
And I worked one of the very first cafes I worked at. I worked at the very first ever wholesale camp house account on the Northern Beaches.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was an amazing place. It had like a gravitational energy pull to people because of where it was situated and the owner and how we worked there. But there was a sense of unreasonable hospitality going on in that place. It was very much the Empire Records of a cafe.
Great movie,
And
Paul, bro. I love that.
great movie, Paul. Yeah, it was an incredible place, and I've learned a lot about leadership and management for a team from that environment, like subconsciously from looking after a team here at Caravela in Australia, and pulled from that, and it empowered me as a barista at the time to really care about what I was doing. I was always passionate about flavor and about quality and about all those things, but there's another level to it where you offer someone, I think a sense of belonging in a community. And that's what cafes give.
Yeah, man.
Communities, and that's what you're charging to it. You got to charge for it. It's not for free, but you show that it's priceless. There's no other industry that can give that. And that's why if you've got the money to celebrate an occasion, you go out to a really good restaurant and you have an incredible experience that you remember forever. It's a price. You can't put a price on that. It's what we have to protect. We have to protect 100%. It.
Yeah, that's the reason I get up every day. That's the reason I go, is because I want to protect the diversity in our industry, the diversity in our supply chain, the diversity in our producers, the diversity in our roasters, and the diversity in our cafes. I want to protect that because at the time right now, that's what's under threat, is the diversity in the coffee supply chain and the diversity of operators. So back yourselves, guys. Like, it's all about that momentum. I have taken so much more of your time than I told you I was going to take.
No, this is great. This is great.
I just looked at the time, bro. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. I think this is good. This is an important conversation to have, I'm all invested. I'm all in. I got skin in the game. We all do. We want to see, we want to see things change for the better and for our industry to mature and grow and evolve. And
yeah, man,
it's important. These conversations are really important, Caleb. So
bro, I appreciate that we share the same mentality, because sometimes I feel like I am like too intense about it, but then every so often I get a conversation like this and I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Well, I think because there's so much at stake, right? Like
I see it as such high stakes. I hate having to edit my own voice every week. I hate editing my own face every week. But there is this little thing on the side of my head that goes, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Like, I've got to go. We've got to get this conversation out there. We have to get people feeling more confident. We have to get people feeling more empowered. We have to get people feeling more valuable. And we have to be able to let them put those things in place so their businesses are sustainable. Like anything.
Yeah.
And I'm laser focusing on the coffee supply chain and roasters, cafes. How can we help you guys feel that confidence and put those things in place to have sustainable businesses? That's what we got to do. I'm gonna go. Was there any more Origin updates? Because I'm pretty sure I cut you off halfway through.
I'll just finish on Nicaragua and just say,
yes.
what we've noticed this harvest is a worrying trend among like some cooperatives and exporters who are lowering the quality standards to meet pricing expectations. So what I mean is that they're offering coffees that may have up to 16 to 23 defects. Increasingly being accepted as standard.
Do you want to just describe that rate? So when you say 16 to 23, what is that in representation of? Like,
so in all the Q graders out there, in terms of like a 300 gram sample, instead of seeing, for us, we allow for our lowest grade about 7 defects from group 1, and I think 1 from group 2. We're talking about like double, almost triple the amount of that. Yeah.
I think it's just important because like some people would be like, is that a lot? Is that not a lot? So that reference of
it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, and
2 to 3 times
crazy.
Increase on defect amount.
It's shocking. So it means as well as the screen size, like allowability. Usually Caravela is 15 plus. Some are going below 14, 13, and that just allows for more debris and other things to be in the cup. And so basically, it's such a shift not only signals a move away from quality in certain parts of the supply chain, but it reinforces the perception of Nicaragua as an origin of coffee, in terms of now it's a low cost origin in an international market. And it's dreadful. While the price might be attractive for some buyers, it risks devaluing all the hard work smallholder producers are striving towards in terms of quality, and ultimately hurts the country's position in specialty coffee space. So, there's all this stuff just reinforces why what Caravela is trying to do really matters, in that it's not all about finding just good coffee. It's about building systems that are fair, transparent, resilient, especially in a year like this, where our commitment to traceability and impact can really make a massive difference.
Yeah. It's wild, man. It's
wild.
It's cool to hear. So it's like it's wild, but it's cool to hear what's happening and what's going on, and the good and the bad. Like, we need to see the light and the dark of this. We need to see those things and understand. I think some of the biggest takeaways that I have from that is the volatile weather is an exact signal of what our volatile market. We talk about volatile pricing. There is volatile weather. Like, that is affecting the crop, and that is what is feeding the volatile market. So when people go, when's it going to go back? When's it going to calm down? There is no sign on the horizon that this weather is getting less volatile.
No, yeah, it's I think, if we're really being honest, the outputs have come out from people like Rabobank, StoneX, a few others, about what's happening. And in general terms, the supply won't meet demand, and that will cause it to continue to stay up for the next 6 months plus. We believe.
Yeah.
And markets rallied again over $4. It's becoming a bit normalized, maybe, but it's still crazy.
It feels like it. Yeah, it feels like I've been desensitized. I remember driving at the end of last year, and I was like, I posted a video. I think I did just like recorded it while I pulled over, because it was like early in the morning. I was driving to get somewhere, and I was like, oh, the market at the lights, I like open bar chart, and I was like, and I just pulled over, turned the video, and I was like, we just broke $3. Like, yeah. And then it felt like a week later I did a $4 one, and then it feels like every other week I'm talking about like $3.50. Like, it blows my mind. But it's like we're desensitized a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's like I said the other day on a video, and I literally had to cut out. I reckon I laughed for like 20 seconds. I was like, oh yeah, the Aussie dollar rallied, and we just got like to 64 cents, and I was like, yeah, the Aussie dollar rallied. But in today, that's a rally, where for so long that was like a floor for us.
Right. It's crazy. I mean, I feel the Aussie dollar especially has always been relatively undervalued in some ways. I think the RBA would do anything they can to bring it above 70 cents, but it's, there's so many facets involved in that that are way outside my jurisdiction.
We're a commodity based dollar. Like, our dollar is largely affected by the commodities that we export and things like that. So I think there's a lot of political stuff that come into that. It's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you definitely become desensitized to these market movements. Before I let you go, because I know you got to drive home tonight, and I appreciate you've waited.
It's all good.
For me, bro. Is there anything that like you are excited for at the end of the year, or I like to end on this optimistic? I've got some things I'm excited for, or anything that you'd love to like share with the community before we wrap up, man.
I haven't had too much time to think about this one, but I think what I'm excited about is, like I said before, with that book, Unreasonable Hospitality, is seeing cafes, seeing roasters, seeing our industry plug back into providing that unreasonable hospitality that is going above and beyond and serving people and making people feel a part of something bigger than themselves, and that connection. I don't think there's ever been a time where we've always been fully connected to a producing country. It's very difficult to do, but I hope that when a crisis, a price crisis, whatever you want to call this storm.
Yeah, we got a supply crisis, we got a price crisis, we got a labor crisis. Like, we're in the storm. We got all of them.
Instead of it causing division, I hope that it creates, community and connection and dependability. And that's what I'm kind of hoping that out of all of this, I think back to when I was roasting and I, had a lot of time in a roaster, plugged in, thinking about my day, thinking about what I was doing and the coffees that were coming up. And you think about trends in coffee. And I remember a time when roasting, you very much felt like the DJ, having control. This is early 2010s when I was roasting, and there was a sense of pride in what I was doing, but I really had no idea what was going on in a roaster. And I thought to myself, man, one day someone is going to come out with information regarding what is actually happening in this drum. Yeah. And it's going to be like written down, understood, and anyone can take it and apply it, and it'll be awesome. It's going to become very automated, but we're going to understand what's going on. And then the same thing was then brought to my attention when, okay, if we can do that, then it's going to be all about green and brands, coffee companies finding a real brand identity in and through the green they source. And we're seeing that, been seeing that for years, but we're seeing it in the last definitely five plus years for sure. Yeah. But now I think due to what's going on, there's another element, which is the financial planning, the having the almost like an MBA kind of standard of like business ethics towards a roastery, which is again never really been there across the board. And you've got to have it. Not saying you've got to go get an MBA, but you've got to have a fundamental understanding of how your business works, so you can operate it and be confident in the decisions that you make. Otherwise, you're flying blind. It's so risky. You can't do that. That's where I see things going. People are going to be educated.
I love it. I think this is where we align on stuff, because it's the exact same thing. Like I think about it when you talk about roasting. Like when I first started roasting was maybe 2012, and I was like minute by minute, no software, writing it in a piece of thing. Right, and I was like, and I'm so grateful that I learned that at the time. And it felt like overnight we went to software. And we were tracking stuff, and it made it more accessible. It made us more consistent. It made us be able to get like more targeted with our results and everything we were trying to do. Awesome. Overnight that happened. Overnight we went from having like no volumetric to volumetric coffee machines, from manual tamping to automatic tamping, from automatic steaming machines now. Like these things happen overnight. We are in the overnight right now where we learn how to become systemized, structured, sustainable coffee buyers and business operators. That is the overnight right now. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt going through it. It's going to hurt having to learn these techniques. But this is the overnight where everyone who puts the work in now comes out the other side of it as a better business operator, as a more sustainable buyer, as a better planner, which is only going to help our supply chain. If we can communicate better back to Origin about what we need, when we need it, how much we need, and why we need it, that is going to help them so much. That this is the overnight for it. So I 100% agree with that mentality, and I absolutely love it, bro. You mentioned Coffee MBA. It's that there's just like there's not a structured education, and we're not going to get it. I'm not opening the can of worms of what SCA dropped this week with their whole CQI thing, because that's a whole can of worms. But it's like we've monetized the access to information. This is open source. Like whatever we can do in these conversations to share knowledge is so critical. And ask people like the same thing. Ask your supplier, I want to get better at forecasting and planning and booking. What can we do? Ask. Like if you lower the barrier and you lower the guard and ask, you'll find help. You might get the 1% who's going to be like, well, yeah, cool, not dealing with you. Who's ready to help? And you'll be overwhelmed with how much people will be willing to help you when you ask, hey, I want to learn how to like get better at my costing. What do you reckon I can do? Boom. I'll either help you or I'll put you in touch with 5 people who will. Like there's so much positivity in our industry for people to help each other, that this is a time to reach out and to lean on each other, I reckon. But
totally. And I'm very lucky that in the case of Caravela, the founders were finance individuals. They're coffee people, but they have a big background in that sense. And they have always been kind of across that and been able to apply that business world in terms of, understanding the market dynamics and applying it to coffee roasters and always been available to pass that knowledge on. And I've still got a lot to learn in that sphere, but especially now with where we're at with the market being backwardation versus contango, like you're seeing that if I book coffee in the future, it's cheaper than it is today. And you can only understand these things if you're asking questions, if you're understanding how, you know, the market works in terms of futures. And it's a really complex, multi-layered thing, but it's just about, yeah, not feeling silly or feeling like you're asking stupid questions. It's about being educated and understanding these things to just grow and do better. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No
you're
stupid
right.
questions. There's just stupid answers. like
Possibly,
that's
yeah.
there's no stupid
Yeah,
questions. You just got to find the right people who answer them for you. Like
yeah,
you got to work with people who want to see you succeed as well. So thank you
yeah. Good
so
mentorship.
much for your time today, bro. I'm so grateful for it. I appreciate you taking
You're
that extra
welcome.
time.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I will pop some links in so you guys can to find some Caravela stuff. You can go follow them on socials to keep up to date. You can obviously reach out to Mark if you have any questions. If you're still watching now, awesome. Thanks for hanging out. Be sure to
Thank
give us a
you. Yeah.
like, a share, and a follow. It really helps us to amplify these messages and to get more people having these conversations and feeling comfortable to have these conversations in our supply chain. So thank you, Hema. Hey, I've lost my words, bro. I've actually lost all my words.
It's a long
Thank
night.
you so much for your time, bro. Happy roasting, everyone, and we'll talk to you all soon, guys. Till next time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.